After 2 years, I've decided to abandon my Instagram. I've accumulated 10,800 followers for video game content. And I started out just doing it maybe to get some free stuff, side hobby. Maybe I'd make a little bit of money. And it worked for the most part. I established a lot of connections. I started growing. I had a lot of fun with it. It required minimally that I spend about 30 minutes on Instagram or working on something for Instagram a day for the last 2 years. And it accumulated a decent amount of followers. I started having basically zero knowledge of how to grow on social media at all. In fact, I was totally absent on social media. I had no idea. I had no idea how to use hashtags. I had no idea how to create my first photo, and I'll include it if I can find it. My first photo that I posted was in my finished attic of Lego Star Wars, and the lighting was god awful. It did not look good. And I do want to say to those of you who are looking to start something creatively that it's really just important just to start, because if I didn't have a growth mindset from the beginning of, okay, I'm going to learn from each post, learn from each mistake, and go from there, then I probably wouldn't have done it. In fact, I know a lot of people that would probably be way better at social media than I was, but because they are perfectionists at heart, they stop themselves from creating, stop themselves from posting, thinking, like looking at other people and saying to themselves, I can't be like that person. There's a reason why they're so big, because they've spent so much time on it. There are people that exist, and I've seen them, that are incredibly skilled and have very specific knowledge in areas that are related to social media. And I see those people grow very quickly, much quicker than I ever have. 10,000 is not anything to sneeze at in terms of my numbers, that's for sure. But there are people out there who like have done it for a year and they have like over 100,000, and they have established very solid communities. And they have skills that were from the beginning that they already had because of choices that they made in what they wanted to do for a living, and it just so happens to translate right to YouTube. That certainly exists, don't get me wrong. And you have people like me, people who had zero knowledge of social media. I had no knowledge on photography. Forget about it. I had nothing. Some knowledge about how to be in front of the camera, mostly knowledge about being behind a microphone and not in front of a camera, because I had done radio at my school and I had done a lot of training videos for what I do for a living. I had a lot of confidence in my voice, but not a lot of confidence. All that to say, if you are someone who wants to do this, that you should absolutely chase it with the knowledge that it is very seldom that people have overnight success. So please be realistic with yourself. And of course, many creators will also tell you that. And it does require a lot of time. But the thing that people don't necessarily talk about, which is why I'm deciding to leave Instagram, and I dramatically put that I was abandoning my Instagram, is that these social media sites, particularly Instagram, require you to be present on the app pretty consistently and often. And when you don't post for a certain amount of time, that absence is absolutely felt. Even your community itself can sometimes forget that you're there. And it doesn't matter on Instagram in particular. And now, of course, this is still true for YouTube and things like that, but in a different way, maybe. When you have 10,000 followers, it's not necessarily going to be pushed out to those 10,000 followers when you create a video. All right, specifically with changes that I can remember in May of 2024, which felt like the most dramatic of changes that Instagram had made, which they make changes all the time to the algorithm. So you just keep posting. You realize you don't really have control over what happens on the app. You can't really predict what's going to work, what's not going to work. You can have 50,000 views on one video, 2 million views on one video, and then 2,000 on the next. Now, typically, if you have 2 million, usually makes it so that the next video is going to be more successful as well, because I assume that they see that success and they're like, okay, this guy's doing well, push it out. So anyway, I digress. It requires you to be present. The really good Instagrammers share stories almost every day and pretty consistently, if I might add, and connect with their audience in a really interesting way. TikTok, different animal, but Instagram and TikTok, having established 1,000 on TikToks and 10,800 on Instagram, I noticed some things about my own psychology that were creating a not so great relationship with the medium. First of all, I couldn't find the motivation or the want to post. So I was feeling like it was a hardship to do it. I was losing the creative want, so to speak. And I kept having this idea, like this plan, like you're going to do it, this workflow this way so that you can record one day a week and then post all of the other days. But something just wasn't working for me. On top of this is a very positive change that's happening in my life, and one that I'm very much looking forward to and not yet ready to talk about. But that particular change is what's causing me to reevaluate what's important. And that is why I'm talking to you here on YouTube, because I don't necessarily want to stop creating, but I feel like it's time to let go of Instagram. It's time to let go for TikTok. I don't want to be constantly present on social media. So I'm deciding, as of right now, I'm 90% sure about this. I could wake up tomorrow and feel totally different. But as of right now, I'm thinking of only utilizing YouTube and Blue Sky. I've only been on Blue Sky for a week or two, and I absolutely love it. I feel like I'm creating connections with people that I've never really created before on any other social media. It's very interesting. I'm very impressed by it. People call it an echo chamber. If it's an echo chamber, mine is very positive, with very good people, with gamers who like all different kinds of games, which on Instagram, let's say like the hashtag Octopath Traveler 2 has maybe 2,000 uses, right? A video about Octopath Traveler is often not going to do well on Instagram. It's just not. Here on YouTube, you can find a group of people who absolutely love Octopath Traveler 2. And the same is true on Blue Sky. I go on someone's Blue Sky and I see on their top list is like Tactics Ogre Reborn. Again, not something you're going to see on Instagram, not someone you're going to see talk about it, but you can connect with that person. You can connect with other people on YouTube who absolutely love that game. So, to summarize, Instagram, TikTok, these social medias require you to be present, constantly posting stories. Now, I'm operating on really just a theory here and just my general experience with YouTube, which isn't much in comparison to those others. But it feels like YouTube is a place where if you are a creator and you are creating long form content of any kind, including these vlogs that are taking off for a lot of people, these videos can have a lot of value. And this is actually, in reality, my bread and butter. Because what I do for a living is I train other mental health professionals, things like crisis de-escalation, talking to people about suicide, training people in motivational interviewing, which is a conversational technique that helps people to create positive change. These are all things that I train on in front of sometimes over 100 people, like hundreds of people on a Zoom. And at this point, I've been doing it for 5 years, I believe. And I don't bat an eye in talking in front of a large group of people. And so this, talking into the camera, although foreign to me, feels a lot like talking on a Zoom for a long time, being a keynote speaker. Being here, I don't even have, let's be real here. I'm creating a change and deciding to go all in on YouTube. And I only have 222 YouTube followers versus 10,800 on Instagram. Why would I do that? It almost doesn't seem smart, right? But let's talk about what artists do. Let's talk about what directors do, painters, writers. They grow and oftentimes they pivot. And pivoting is not the same as giving up. And if you look and you listen to other successful social media content creators, oftentimes they will say it was their third or fourth channel that was the one that took off for them. And I have absolutely no qualms at this point in time with making this pivot, especially with the positive change that's happening in my life, big life change. I need the freedom to not be constantly on social media and YouTube to create long form mostly, because I may decide to create short form. I don't know what that's going to look like, if that will still look like what I've done in the past, which were a lot of comedic skits on YouTube about particular games like Baldur's Gate 3. The two things that I know I'm going to create on here is these types of vlogs where I'm talking to you. And two, I am going to create videos that connect psychology and video games. One video that I'm going to be working on next is how the indie game Spiritfarer guides us through the process of grief. So again, I told you I work in mental health. I am a licensed social worker. I either host the training or I'm working with the best of the best who are teaching others. So I get to benefit from others' expertise on a pretty much daily basis, if not weekly basis. So what I'd like to do is have videos like how Elden Ring helps build resilience, or a video that talks about Link from Zelda as a silent protagonist. And what does a a silent protagonist mean to us? What's the psychology behind a silent protagonist? There's so many things that you could do in these particular categories, and I'm very excited to get started. So here we are. That's the basis to this. Along with that, not wanting to be on social media all the time, there's other stuff that I need to work on. I want to dive further into my relationship with what I eat and what I do with my body daily. Getting more steps, eating healthier. I'm already going to the gym 3 times a week. People may not know by looking at me, but that's a necessity. I have to, because I live with chronic pain. I can't do a lot of stuff suddenly, and I can't stop going to the gym either. Either way is gonna create more pain for me. So I have to like progressively advance in my lifting and whatever exercises I'm doing. And now the extra piece to that is just like figuring out my eating and my relationship to food in that way. And that's super important. You only have one body. And I don't want to, there's so much time, as I said, minimally 30 minutes a day for 2 years. Think about how much time, oftentimes more like an hour and a half. Some of you may respond to this and be like, Mike, you're delusional. YouTube requires just as much effort. Maybe. I can't help but think there's a little bit of a difference in terms of how often you can create. And just by looking at other YouTubers, I can see that sometimes they take a break, sometimes they come back into it. You can't really do that on Instagram. You suddenly find yourself playing video games specifically for the purpose of virality, right? What game is going to get you the most views? And some of you are sitting there and, oh no, Mike, you can't think like that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I got sucked into that atmosphere there. I want to go back to playing more indie games that nobody's ever heard of. And on YouTube, I know there's an audience for these types of things. I also plan on going live, but probably only on YouTube and not on Twitch. I want to focus my attention in one particular area and see how this goes. This is pretty much my second ever vlog, and especially long vlog like this. I think I'm just gonna keep creating, even if nobody's watching. And I'm just gonna keep doing the vlogs. I'm gonna keep doing these like kind of psychology journalistic views about video games, keep going live on YouTube, and let's see where it takes me. I started a journey on Instagram 2 years ago that got me 10,800 followers. Everyone in my life were like, what are you doing? You're gonna do this? What skills do you have in this? And so let's start over. And it's not even really starting over. I can take all of the skills that I've learned over time, utilize them here, and let's build something different. And if anything I said today appeals to you or resonates with you, consider giving me a follow. My name is Mike Berger, and I like to talk about video games. Here we go. Thanks.